Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Monday. It's a big Monday because Steve Sarkisian addressed the media today ahead of spring football starting next week with some big news, Cody. And it's my main takeaway is it sounds like Christian Clark sure is in a good spot.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's not exactly the bit of news we expected to walk away with from a press conference on March 10th was Christian Clark, man, he's ahead of schedule. I was like, wait, hold up. Christian, the guy with the Achilles tear, he's ahead of schedule, and like he's not going to be one of the 5 guys that's not going to be participating? Or did he say 5 or 9 guys? Doesn't matter. Christian Clark ahead of schedule. Big news. Good news.
Yeah, so I mean the exact quote from Sark. So because it does matter whether he said 5 or 9, right?
So in my head I said 5, but I was like, wait, so I know it was more than that.
He said about injuries. He said four or 5 guys won't participate fully in the spring. He said Derek Williams, C.J. Baxter, DeAndre Moore, Colton Vosick. There may be one more. Some other guys would be limited. And he said, I've really been encouraged by Christian Clark. I've been surprised. And so I was just like, well, so wait, Christian Clark wasn't listed in that because he kind of said they're the 4 or 5 that are they're the 4 or 5 that are that feel like they're going to be if anything, right? If anything, limited. And those 4, I guess they were all expected except for me, DeAndre Moore. Seems like it's a little bit out of the blue. We can kind of discuss that in one second because I think it sort of, we can pull up the depth chart and the projected depth chart and the scholarship board and see like, oh, well, what's going to happen at slot wide receiver, right? During the springtime. Is that going to have some kind of open runway for the Texas Longhorns as far as who might step in there to that, it's going to be a guy during the spring playing 45% of the snaps. That is is not going to be DeAndre Moore. But we'll talk about that in a second. But just as far as the Christian Clark stuff, I just thought that the fact that he was not mentioned along with those guys is very encouraging. Running back was viewed as kind of an issue this spring. It's just like it just kind of was. When you look at Trey Wisner, Jarrett Gibson, the only 2 that had ever played a snap for the Longhorns before, and one of them was a true freshman was a true freshman last year, coming off a role that was just a completely specialized role in Jarrett Gibson. It's like, I mean, we're just like, all right, well, let's see what these freshmen do. And we even had the discussion last week. It's like, could Michael Terry step in and maybe give some help here? If Christian Clark is able to sort of go at all, I'm flabbergasted that Sark didn't just mention him as being completely out the same way he did C.J. Baxter. It's just, since when is it since when is an ACL tear worse than what Christian Clark had?
I guess, we've always, I don't want to jump to anything. I don't know anything past this, but we know that there's been both sides, ACLs and Achilles. So ACLs is something in the medical field that we've learned has been vastly expedited over the course of the last decade. It used to be a year thing. Now it's pretty much like known as like a 9-month thing. And we've had guys, 8 months, 7 months, if they're psychotic. But if you have a, let's say, setback in your recovery, it can push you to that year mark. And the Achilles side of things, like we've learned with Cam Akers, Aaron Rodgers, J.K. Dobbins, these guys, where Achilles is generally known as a year, maybe a year plus, sometimes a career.
Yeah.
These guys, the last 2-3 years, have been able to push the limits. And there's, I can't remember the name of the surgery that like Rodgers and J.K. Dobbins had.
Tightrope.
Was it tightrope Achilles?
I think it was. Is that not what it was?
I think tightrope something different than the Achilles tear, but you might be right on the. Anyway, it's a different Achilles surgery style that allowed these guys to basically walk earlier on, which obviously enables you to run earlier on and recover a little bit faster. But it's a new thing. I don't know if that's what Christian Clark had, but based on the timeline here of him front squatting 275 pounds the other day, and of him likely being ready for camp in a couple of weeks, that's August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. That's 8 months. That's a really fast recovery. And that means everything's went 100% perfect for Christian Clark. Whereas if you had, let's say, a setback in an ACL injury, you can see why an extra month or two may be pressed onto that line.
Yo, dude, it's 7 months, right?
What happened in July, right?
No, it happened in like mid-August. It happened around this time of month in August.
Okay. Then 7 months. There you go.
Yeah, so it was right. Because August to September, September to October to November to December, January, February to March.
August 13th.
Yeah. So we're coming up right at 7 months. It just seems
Baxter was 1 week before that, August 6th.
So look, man, I mean, if he can, I'm not optimistic that he's going to be out there and be 100%. I honestly think it would be kind of crazy to put him out there and push him. But one of the things that Sark did say is today, whenever he was asked about sort of what exactly all this, like there's been all this talk about the OTA style practices, right? What exactly does that mean? You know, what are we doing here? Because Sark did, he did kind of talk about like, he'd already formally said no spring game, right? He'd already put that out there. That was already out in the world from the Kay Adams show. It'd been out in the kind of the world of here on Orange Bloods Live, dating back to January when we started hearing about it. But he did come out and say that he knew he was going to kind of have to. He hasn't really answered questions about that from the local media yet, so you knew that was something that they were going to ask about. But he just said. He said, I think traditionally for us, we've been a two-spot operation. And what he means is that a lot of times on one field, they'll have the ones and the threes. And then on another field up at Dennius, they'll have the twos and the fours. And he just said this spring, we're going to all be on one field. And he says that with 27 new faces, 22 new high school faces, and 5 transfers here, he just says we all need to be working collectively in that way. And he says that they're going to be minimizing team reps for the older players, getting the younger guys involved. He said that's going to involve extended individual periods, a few more teaching periods. And he said they're still going to incorporate some team periods and a couple of scrimmages, just a little bit more controlled. And they're not going to have these like 120 play scrimmages. And he said, look, this isn't for, and he said the reason why that they were going to be like changing it, it's not, he just says it's not, this isn't the same reason that it is for all the other schools. He's not going with the Matt Rule thing of saying, oh, we're worried our guys are going to get poached. He's like, dude, we're Texas. Our guys are whether we like it or not, our guys are going to get poached. Right. He said, look at what happened whenever the 5-day window opened after they lost to Ohio State. He's like, you got to be out doing your, trying to finish up the recruiting class or, getting out there, actually starting with the 2026 recruiting whenever you had the recruiting window there. And he says he's having to do this stuff where he's having to like do retainer work with his players because at that point in time, he just said, all eyes are on you because it's like you're the only ones that are open right now for business. But he said even so, like this is Texas, people are going to come here and they're going to be sniffing around your guys. And so like that isn't the reason for us. He said the reason is because of the new players, but you don't just change something up forever because this has changed forever, right? You agree this has changed forever. And so you don't change something forever based on one season of a bunch of new influx. You're going to have a new influx of guys every single year. I mean, it is what it is through attrition, through the NFL. If Texas is going to stay on the path that Sark has envisioned here, you're going to be losing guys to the draft and you're going to be losing guys to attrition because there are really good players on the football team and there's a sense of competition and all the rest of it. And, every spring is going to be like this. So I guess you could sort of see it like that, man. I think it's that this team finished the season in tatters, Cody. It's like everybody was hurt to end the year. And I feel like at the point in time, whenever Sark was like, dude, we're going into winter conditioning, and we have spring football coming up after this. We're what are we doing here? Like we can't just have these guys go through all this stuff, and maybe by now, by March, you got probably Anthony Hill's feeling better, right? And Young LaFau is ready to go, and some of these guys that we're dealing with, all the various things that they were dealing with throughout the season. It's like they're healed up, they're fine, but at the time where the decision was made, I just think so much of this has to do with the health. Saying, man, it's a longer season now. It's a weird deal. It's just too much to put on these guys.
And I think part of it in that you say we're not going to have a spring game, we're going to have a practice, and the whole OTA, the whole 15 practices are just going to be practices, is there's no train of thought of ramp up. And what he said also part of the press conference was it's ever more important that we have every guy get an opportunity to play in those first 4 games of the season. And I think that draws all the way back to even now in the spring OTAs, is that there's going to be no ramp up to a spring game. Like they don't have to like get up for a spring game or like ramp up that week of practices to like, have a call sheet. It can just be like, hey, we're going to install. Everyone's going to learn. We're all going to be on one field. The camaraderie is going to be tight. Everything is going to be dialed. And this is going to be a very controlled thing, right? And then when you get to the fall, everyone's got the system down. Everyone's got the feel of what it's like to play with next to this guy, right? You got Nato has had reps next to Gooseby. Nato's had reps next to Brooks. Brooks has had reps next to Robertson. All these different concoctions of the offensive line. These guys have a connection. All the quarterbacks have handed off to the running backs. All the quarterbacks have thrown to the receivers. All these different things. And on the defense, the same thing applies. Is going to come because you have 15 full practices with no game intent at the end and no worry of, I'm sure they'll have times in those 15 OTAs where they might go like live full speed and really start cracking. But I'm sure a lot of it is just going to be a lot of install and, 3/4 speed teaching.
Yeah. And you also Cody, in a weird way, you don't waste like a Thursday practice, right? You don't go full thud on Tuesday, then knowing you have this hellacious 120 play scrimmage on Saturday, have to just spend the practice on just complete walkthroughs and just shorts and shells. You know what I mean? Yep. It's like, at least this way you can keep it mid intensity the whole time. Get in some good intense sessions as far as team-like sessions. I would imagine that. Did you get the idea that the fan engagement event, because it felt like that was going to have to do, there's a big baseball game that week. It's the weekend of day 3 of the NFL draft. So Saturday. So that's the 26th.
Yep.
Did you get the feeling like that fan engagement event was going to include allowing fans in to watch that practice?
Yeah, I think that's what CDC, I had a note on this like 3 weeks ago. He went on a show and talked about it. Like the whole thing is going to be around fan appreciation. There's going to be like meet and greet opportunities. Then they had the baseball game. I think there was a softball game. I think there's a bunch of stuff. Sorry, I'm going to like sneeze. But I think that's what he said. Like everything was going to be fan engagement, fan appreciation. And I can't imagine that they would have fans down, in the area of the stadium and not be like, hey, come in the stadium. That's just kind of where my brain went. But I guess there hasn't been an official announcement, I don't think, regarding like, hey, 100,000 fans, you're allowed or not.
Huh. Yeah. It's just, I'm just trying to figure it out with my whole stuff about with NFL draft travel.
Probably,
and all the rest
a great question for CDC if he hypothetically held a town hall a week ago.
Well, CDC will just answer. You can call CDC. He'll pick up the phone. Like I might
tweet at him. He'll just tweet you back.
Guy text, dude.
When Twitter starts working again, he'll tweet you back.
Yeah. But, so thanks to everybody for being here today on YouTube. Looks like we're not broadcasting on Twitter, but hopefully some of the people from X today will find their way over to YouTube. It's good to know, Cody, that this is an issue on all of our kind of restream channels, and not just one or the other, I guess, if that makes it feel any better. As far as DeAndre Moore, I wanted to talk about that. Whenever you pull up the your projected depth chart and you look at the wide receivers that are going to be on campus and you take DJ Moore out of the slot, is this as simple to you as like, man, it's time to giddy up and see what Dalen McCutcheon is made of? Or are there any of these others between Ryan Wingo, Jamie French, Michael Terry, Parker Livingstone, Khalil Lockett, Aaron Butler, and Freddie Dubose, who you feel like profile as somebody you could at least, man, it might not be an exact fit out of the slot, but let's go ahead and see it the same way that, we kind of worked Bond a little bit out of the slot. Sometimes we had the packages for Ryan Wingo out of the slot last year. And then we all know, we went out to the first day of fall camp in 2024 and Matthew Golden was working out of the slot. By the end of the season, that wasn't happening at all. Does anything stand out to you? I guess Michael Terry and Parker Livingstone both kind of would present interesting options as the sort of the big slot type that big fast slot type that you'd be interested in to just really, really, really be outside linebacker and nickel beaters with their size speed combos. But then McCutcheon to me is like the prototypical slot that would just be the heir to the apparent behind DeAndre Moore. You got to practice Wingo where he's going to play. And I kind of think the same thing for Livingstone. I think the same thing for Lockett. Maybe Aaron Butler.
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I don't think it matters. I think that just what I said about the offensive line when I said, Brooks working next to this guy, Gooseby working next to this guy, all these different guys working next to these guys, handing the ball off, throwing, working, different linebacker sets, Spence and Hill, Ty Anthony Smith and Hill, Ty Anthony Smith and Spence, all these different things. I think also you called him DJ Moore, which I love. But DeAndre,
what did I say? Oh, sorry, man. I've got too much NFL free agency stuff, and we have a big free agent note that just came through about the Cowboys.
Okay, we'll talk about it in a second. But I think that just like I said about the other positions, receiver's going to be one, even with DeAndre Moore out, because they know he's established. He's the slot guy. That it's only going to allow more opportunities for even a Wingo to learn those spots, because it does not hurt to learn more of those spots, because like you said, in the NFL, all these alphas can work in and out. And if Wingo can learn that, hell, if you got Livingstone bump in there, I think that obviously McCutcheon's going to get a lot of that work. Do I think that it would make sense if you hypothetically were going to play or ramp up for a spring game to make McCutcheon be your starting slot receiver? Probably wouldn't do that. I don't think that would fit. I've kind of talked about that. I don't think he's quite there from a physical maturity standpoint. So maybe how about the Niblet thing, right? Doesn't this feel like it opens the door for a potential like a Niblet to play a little slot?
You're just, what are you going to do? You keep moving him from place to place?
Yeah, dude, he's the ultimate joker.
You can't do that.
You're preparing a guy to never start in college and to play and to start both ways in the NFL.
He's got to convince teams that he's the next Travis Hunter. He just never played.
Anything you want, special teams, start, sit, doesn't matter.
That guy, I know he played 120 snaps a game. I didn't play any of these spots, but I practiced them all. Come on, dude. All right, so we'll get to the Dallas Cowboys free agent signing here in just one quick second. But I do see Money B in the chat, and I'll tell you one thing. I was so happy the other day to see our guy Money B over at Texas Beef Traders. How good is it to see Money B and his lovely bride come in there trying to get some beef jerky? Unfortunately, you guys have sold us out of beef jerky yet again. Some new stuff's coming in on Wednesday. So if you've put in orders and you're still waiting on them, any of the 4 delicious flavors, Darren's going to start getting those out again on Wednesday. But thank you guys for supporting us and buying all that beef jerky, man. We really appreciate it. You know it comes from the best beef in Texas, and that's the Texas Beef Traders right off of Loman's Crossing, right there in the heart of Lakeway. Delicious beef, no vaccines, no antibiotics, all, just any of this weird stuff, man, steroids stuff, the HGH, all the or HGH. What is it? No,
I don't think there's
non-GMO.
HGH.
Non-GMO. Those Piedmontese cows look like they've been shot up with HGH, Cody. They're just the big rippling muscle Mighty Mouse cows. Those come from Lukenbach. It's a different ranch, but still same quality standards from the Wagyu beef that you get from Iron Table up in Gatesville. You can find all of these beautiful herds that are within 100 miles of the shop right there at Texas Beef Traders. You get 10% off whenever you go in there and tell me you heard about them here on Football with Friends. Go to TexasBeefTraders.com, put together a box. They got specials on boxes. Cody's got a signature box. I have a signature box. You can go and get those. It's like 100. What does your box cost, Cody? It's a whole grip of stuff, like $150.
Something like that, yeah.
Get your 10% off. Next thing you know, it's $135 for all your beef for the next 2 months. It's just, and here's the thing: if you live in the Austin area, Darren will just bring it to your house.
And they do have. I did take a picture of it. I could probably show it on the screen, but definitely, if you go small box, medium box, large box, Darren gives you percentages off based on that too. And the large box goes up to 35 pounds, and just deals on deals. And Darren's awesome. That's all I can say. I went in there and I should probably put these pictures on my computer and not just on my phone so I can say I have them, but I could show the steak and the sausages that we had this weekend. Because
just fantastic. Texas Beef Traders. We love those guys. Make sure and check them out. Oldest sponsor. You guys know them. Texas Beef Traders. And I'm not going to put up the beef jerky link until we actually have beef jerky, but thank you guys so much for helping us with that. All right, Cody. Okay. So I was going to ask you.
I can't. I can't not Twitter it.
If you could guess, what do you think about this? Javonte Williams signs a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys. They're giving him $3 million.
$3 million? I just saw that he signed.
Yeah, and if you were to, I mean, $3 million is not it's a pretty penny, but it's not that much. I mean,
no, that's nothing. That's what. No. That's nothing.
Yeah, well, he's played like nothing. And so does this take them out of the Ashton Jeanty sweepstakes that people have been talking about at 12, which I don't think that they're going to do anyway.
Daria Gumbawale just got $2 million.
Well, Javonte has been terrible. He runs around like he's had an accident in his pants. He does. That's what he looks like. The back of his pants actually looks frumpy like that. Like there might be something back there. It does.
Are the Michael Carter truthers going to be able to play the long game with this thing? And Michael and those that put Michael Carter ahead of Javonte Williams in rookie drafts that year going to be able to run?
Because Michael Carter hasn't done anything either.
Hey,
Javonte is at least for one season, at least, even though it wasn't good for fantasy and stuff, they'll point at the forced missed tackles and they'll point at the elusive rating. And
that doesn't score fantasy points.
It doesn't matter. They're gonna say, look, I mean, he was on schedule until he got hurt. No one's gonna take an L on putting Javonte over Michael Carter out of UNC. It's not gonna happen. But
Michael Carter is the archetype that can last for like 6 more years.
Six more years of getting 30 touches per season.
Six more years of that, 28 years old James White role that's just upcoming.
No, God, okay. Well,
Javonte Williams, to answer your question, 1 year, $3 million to Dallas. What this does for me is this says, hey, listen, we're not drafting Ashton Jeanty, but hey, listen, we might draft Ollie Gordon at 76 in the 3rd round.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Every team in this draft should be taking a running back late because there are going to be good ones that are available in round 5 and 6 and stuff. Ollie Gordon could end up falling.
That'll be a good question. We can do that for like a final takes at some point in the next 6 weeks of over under on number of NFL teams that will draft a running back during the whole draft. At least one. How many teams?
It's going to be,
probably 28 and a half. You put the number.
My first thing was 21, but it's probably, I don't know. Probably you're probably right to have it higher. It's just it's probably right between sick running back class. So, but Javonte Williams, I mean, for you, does he come into the Cowboys as like do you think he has a chance to come in because to be the starter? Because they do. I mean, the only guys that they have on their roster currently are Rico Dowdle, who they might not even be getting back, and then Deuce Vaughn. They don't. There's nobody else. I think they might still have Malik Davis on the practice squad.
Alex, this is last year. Zach Moss signed with the Bengals for 2 years, $8 million.
Four per year.
Yep. 2 years, $8 million.
And the Cowboys wanted Moss.
2 years, $8 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew it was going to be a good setup. He obviously had a freak neck injury, which is unpredictable, and necks are necks. But an athletic, highly productive college player that for all intents and purposes was not a good prospect or a good projector into the NFL, who was a 4th or 5th round pick in Chase Brown, completely took that backfield over and completely shut out Zach Moss. And the Bengals didn't really have a choice, but at least in the early part of the season, we're like, okay, this is Chase Brown. Like they were okay with just giving it to him. So what I'm getting at is, even though they gave Javonte $3 million, which is nothing,
peanuts.
Literal,
it's just so funny to say it's peanuts when it was like that would change my life to have $3 million.
Oh, dude!
I close my eyes and just imagine just my brand new ranch in like Mason County, Texas, and that was like, I couldn't imagine it. But anyway, and so I'm not saying it's peanuts, but as far as
in your man-made pond, that you fill with fish,
yeah,
and your homemade boat.
I wouldn't have a man-made pond. I'd buy it somewhere that's like on the San Saba River.
There you go.
All I need is 40 acres. I'm fine. Have access to deer on it. I'll be good, man. Give me $3 million. You'll never hear from me again. So I'm not saying it's peanuts like that. But for the running backs, I mean, Saquon got 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's what it is. That's the world we're in, though. He reset the market, and this is what Javonte got in a reset market. And Javonte comes in at 20? He's about to turn 25 years old. So he's not old.
Forget how because he was only 20 coming in.
Yeah. And but he had the ACL, LCL, PCL in 2022. He didn't have any injuries last year. He just stunk, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does he come in as the starter?
If they play the game tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah. Well, of course, if it's tomorrow, but sure, probably by the time the season gets here, because what this tells me is they probably won't get anybody else in free agency. I mean, I know on the Roster Watch show earlier today, we talked about, like, I brought up Najee Harris. I was like, man, Najee that'd be a good spot, but it's going to cost you more than $3 million. And when you look at the draft class, like, I see an Ollie Gordon in the 3rd round potentially. I think you look at, like, the 4th, 5th round is just way too obvious to get somebody. And, Montrell Johnson from Florida, who ran a 4.41. It's like, that's the type of athlete that wasn't productive in college that you think could get drafted in the 5th round. And guess what? You're talking about on August 25th. It's like, well, Byron's reporting live from Cowboy camp. Oh, well, this Montrell Johnson kid's got all the juice. And you're like, well, damn, there's Javonte Williams. He's gone.
Wouldn't it be crazy if they drafted RJ Harvey and RJ Harvey would only come in a year younger than Javonte Williams? It's wild, right?
I would love RJ Harvey in that offense.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have a chance to get somebody like that. Like Jarquez Hunter, like any of these, Dylan Sampson. Like
they have 3 comp picks almost in a row at the end of the 5th round. 531, 533, and 535.
They shouldn't go running back in the 1st round.
5th round, I said.
They shouldn't go running back in the 1st round. You have Christopher Summers saying that if Ashton's there, they better draft him. They said and don't care about some other running back in the 3rd or 4th round. Well, I'll just tell you this, Christopher. It's fine. You have that opinion. We love Ashton Jeanty too, but in our jobs where we have to kind of think about this draft and sort of where the value lies and how you can maximize the value of it. We've identified this as a completely historic running back class, where there's just not as much difference between the very top and the guys that are like even 10 and 11 and 12 and stuff than there is between the real key, like the real key edge guys and the real key offensive linemen and stuff like that, between the guys you're taking the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round versus the guys that you can get day 3. So clearly, you're definitely entitled to your opinion. I'm not sure that it's just a lock that they would go Jeanty though, because if I can think through it in my head like that, I'd imagine that they've probably thought through it as well, considering it's their job and their livelihoods at stake. Speaking of having your important things at stake, today is my anniversary with my wife.
Hell yeah. Congratulations.
So we might have to get off the show a tiny bit early because
How many years?
It's 12 years of marital bliss, but it feels like longer because we were together living together for a while before that, but 12 years, and came this close to kind of forgetting. I always kind of, it's 3/10/13, right? But I sometimes think it's 3/13. Sometimes
10.
I think it's March 13th. So it came very, very close to forgetting, but I did remember in plenty of time. No thanks to any reminder that my mom might have sent saying happy anniversary early this morning. To both of us. Thankfully, my wife always leaves with the kids before I wake up, so I didn't have the opportunity to say happy anniversary this morning. But of course, I'll need to call and order her some sushi from Uber before, like. Cody, you know where I live, right? It's like at a certain point in time, the Uber drivers just quit taking deliveries out here. So
I would know that because I once ordered you, I Uber ate you or whatever it's called, Instacarted you a bottle of tequila at like 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little bit tough to find somebody, right? And you
who's going to drive 35 minutes out to this dude in the middle of nowhere? Like,
yeah. So, but what I did do today is I drove, and you ordered that from Specs, of course, and they sent it to me. Of course, today I had to go over to Specs and make sure to get my wife's favorite Chardonnay cake bread from Napa, and that's just that I would go nowhere else but Specs because it was $15 less at Specs than it would be anywhere else. We love Specs. They're our great sponsor, and we can't thank them enough.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shout Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Yes, it's Football with Friends here on Orange Bloods Live. So pumped to have all you guys here with us, and so pumped for everybody that'll be joining the show here over the course of the next couple of days. Cody, just letting people know, just kind of from over the weekend. I know that we had the Everything Everywhere All at Once, the article that Catch put out today that you and Jason and just the whole Orange Blood staff, Jalen, are really a part of, just kind of keeping up with the notes from over the weekend as far as what happened with some of these various recruits. Is there anything that popped off to you as being especially important or notable as far as Texas targets or just recruiting trends, anything from this last weekend?
I think the big thing, you guys should go check it out. If you go over to Orange Bloods, it's called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's kind of a weekend recap. The biggest takeaway that Catch had was Jalen Lott, who is one of the top prospects in the state of Texas, from Panther Creek and Frisco. He's a guy that projects to play receiver, but also to potentially play corner. He was at LSU over the weekend. That was kind of the big one. The other one was Oklahoma was kind of, I think they called it, what did they call it this weekend? They called it their like
Freaks of the Future.
Freaks. Yeah, they called it their Freaks of the Future weekend. And there was a little bit of a situation with a star-studded player that was going to show up but didn't show up. And the Oklahoma weekend, for all intents and purposes, was kind of a flop, I would say. Drew Evers, a well-known offensive lineman from Flower Mound, did go, but it
was a flop.
And Pupu Katoa, what the hell they call him other than Pupu Katoa? What's his first name? Toa Katoa. Toa, there you go. Brain. Toa Katoa and Drew Evers were the main two of note from Oklahoma. But my biggest,
the offensive lineman from
Euless Trinity.
Yep.
And so, but my biggest takeaway from the weekend came from Clemson. And Clemson now, I mean, today
Can we talk about Clemson? Can you tell me why you think Oklahoma was a flop?
Well, that's what I'm gonna compare it to is Clemson. So the reason that I think Oklahoma was a flop is because Oklahoma was the, in recruiting circles, right? When from the Texas perspective, you think of recruiting, you worry about Oklahoma, A&M, LSU, these teams that are around in Georgia,
Yeah.
Bama, these teams that are around you, and then the SEC, right? And Oklahoma has this freaks weekend, right? So you're expecting they're going to have some freaks in there that Texas is going to like and Texas is going to have interest in. And the grouping overall, I thought, I was like, well, this is a little underwhelming. And I looked over and, I'm in South Carolina, so I look up and it's Clemson, and Clemson's got this elite weekend, elite retreat. And their elite retreat, Zayden Krempin was there, who did not have an offer, paid his own way to go to Clemson, got an offer, and loved how the visit went.
Did you say paid his own way?
Paid his own way. He did not have an offer. It was an unofficial. He went over there for it. Now, I don't know if there was an NIL situation or not, but he went over there and got his 53rd offer. So that is what it is. Tyler Atkinson, the number one linebacker in America from Grayson, Georgia, he was there. They ended up with 4 commitments on the weekend, and then I think they got a 5th one like literally a couple of hours ago. All 4 stars. Marcel Gibson, who's a cornerback from Dallas, who was not a Texas target. He was an Ole Miss, Washington, Wisconsin type of a level guy. Was not really on the Longhorn radar. He also committed to Clemson just a couple hours ago. So they got 5 4-stars this weekend committed to Clemson. And that was kind of the biggest wave that was made, was from Dabo and their elite retreat, rather than Oklahoma and their freak fest or whatever the hell they call it.
But okay, so you just think it's a flop because they didn't come out with any commits?
No, well, not even that. Just that, like, the going into the weekend, it was like, well, we got to pay attention to Oklahoma, and and I think there's a Brandon Arrington, right? There was a report on OU Insider about Brandon Arrington. Brandon Arrington is a 5-star corner athlete, number 12 recruit in the class, according to On3. High-end recruit, right, from California, number 1 ranked kid in California right now. There was a report that on OU Insider that the communications between Arrington and Arrington's dad and the Oklahoma staff was that Arrington was going to be there. And the staff was like, posted on Twitter that you're going to come. And then there was some type of miscommunication to where the dad didn't pick up a text or something, or answer a text because he was working. And then the staff was like, didn't double reach out to Arrington, something. It was a major kerfuffle in the number 1 recruit in California, top 20 recruit in the country. And the kid was just like, yeah, he didn't go. And he's like, yeah, they're probably, they're out. They're out. They're not in my top 6. And then he released a top 6 last night, right after that news came out. So they completely crapped the bed with him. And, the 2 best guys were Toa Katoa and Drew Evers, who are good. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, Zayden Krempin was at Clemson. Tyler Atkinson was at Clemson. Naheem Burrows, the wide receiver from Jacksonville, who's a top-end receiver, top 15 receiver in the country, was at Clemson, commits to Clemson.
He did.
Tackle from Ohio, that was one of the tackles that Texas had offered. They haven't really pushed towards him, but he was one of the tackles that Texas had offered, commits to Clemson. You know what I'm saying? So they come away with 5 4-star commitments on March 8th, whereas the Oklahoma thing was supposed to be, freaks, and it was like flop.
Do you think that Dabo's kind of coming to his senses, or just kind of coming around a little bit as far as NIL?
Well, I think Dabo sees a last opportunity in 2025 with Cade Klubnik. They got Visna, who's a sophomore, their quarterback, Chris Visna. He's like the backup. But after that, it's like the quarterback position is kind of dead in the water for Clemson. So he needs a massive class this year. He needs to hit hard this year. I think Dabo's only 55. So if I expect Clemson to be good this year with Cade Klubnik, and that was a super young team.
They got to be favorites to win the ACC. I haven't looked at the markets.
I would say so. I mean, unless the markets like Carson Beck, which I don't think they do. I would favor Clemson over SMU and Miami.
I guess whatever. Georgia Tech, you might put it. Georgia Tech's probably going to get some buzz.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But like, I would say Clemson's 100%. I mean, they're going to have a quarterback. I mean, there was a article, not to get off topic here, but Albert Breer had the Monday morning quarterback last week during the combine, and he basically said that there was teams at the combine that talked about Cade Klubnik. If he would have declared this year, they think he would have worked himself into the first round. So it tells you where they think about him at. And I think how Klubnik played last year was enough to kind of project towards a pretty good 2025. They win 10 plus games. They make a run in the playoffs. I think Dabo is trying to make that run. And I think what making a run does is it obviously gets the recruits happy and gets you going, and it gets mojo back in the program. And we've seen him dabble into the transfer portal this past cycle. And now with rev share, everyone's going to have money. So he kind of just is forced. His hand is a little bit forced.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it's like even if he wanted to, you saw, like, whenever I saw the quotes from Zayden Crimpin, who, you could tell, I've seen the interviews with him. I think that guy likes to fish and stuff like that. And I just think him going to a program like Clemson, and visiting, I think that I think there's certain guys that are just kind of drawn to a program like that who might actually kind of like it, that it's, it's kind of there on a lake and it's a kind of a pretty area, but it's not necessarily this whole big city vibe and stuff. Like, I think that for better or for worse, I know that that's not necessarily what, Texas fans would hope that a player wants, because they'd come to Austin and be like, that's a little bit of a big city for me, or whatever. But I think there are some people that kind of go there, and, I've never been on the campus at Clemson, man. I've seen photos and stuff of it, man, though. And like back when I was in college, if I'd have gone there, I think I would have loved the way that place looked. You know what I mean? Like, I can go to the lake in 15 minutes, and cool little town. And I think with Dabo, he's known so much as this guy that's a culture builder, program builder. You have these NFL types that there are NFL GMs. And we know this through Michael Lombardi in his books. He was a GM in the NFL. Now he's the GM of the North Carolina. He's got to play against Dabo. There were people who would hire Dabo, a college coach, to come in and talk about, these new coaches in the NFL, about how to establish a culture in their locker room. Now, granted, a lot of that occurred during the late 2010s, whenever Clemson had a little bit more of a sheen to it of, every year, really fighting for a national championship or really being up there at the top. And they've lost a little bit of that sheen lately. But Dabo hadn't forgot about this stuff. And now it's like, even if he held steady against these, like, I don't care. That's not how we're going to build this transfer portal. Like, no, we're not going to do it. This NIL, we're not going to do it. We're not, like, to his complete detriment, right? Now he's like, now he sees the writing on the wall. He's like, starting on July 1st, you're gonna have to. It's gonna be illegal not to, right?
Yeah.
So why not embrace it? It's like, it's gonna, like, so there could be something here with Clemson happening to where it's like the thing that's been kind of holding Dabo Swinney back might have been maybe himself and his unwillingness to embrace some of these things, or just to be really, really grudgingly embrace it. And say, no, man, I care more about the culture. I care more about, the standard here. And I want people who want to be here and all this stuff. Well, if you marry that with something that never changed, along with the fact that now everybody's kind of getting paid the same, we could see a little bit of a resurgence here from Clemson. So I'm not surprised. I guess I'm not surprised they had a big weekend. I'll tell you this though, man. The one thing that I did notice from that OU weekend was the pictures that got tweeted out in the old moving pictures, the old videos of Mike Fasusi. Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you're talking about? No?
I thought you were going to talk about. I thought you were on the Katoa picture that he posted from the offensive line room.
Oh no, I didn't. No. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I saw. Just a picture, just videos of Mike Fasusi getting down in the 3-point stance and hitting bags and looking real big and burly and sweaty and just good, man. Like, he looks really good, and he's probably going to start. And to me, that guy will always be the one that got away. But if we're talking freaks of the future, at least they got that guy on board.
Would hypothetical here, obviously, had Fasusi signed with Texas, would Gooseby be the right tackle right now, or would they have Fasusi go over there?
I think after what Gooseby showed, I think you got to put him at left. You put Mike at right, and then you tell Mike you say Brandon Baker swing, right, and then I think that's more. I mean,
Feels a lot messier, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. You got a little bit of a Brandon Baker issue there for sure, but right. But so you got the Brandon Baker issue, but would you rather have that, or would you rather have the kind of Andre Kojo swing tackle issue? It's like, that's the other issue. It's like, if Brandon Baker wins that job, and then if anything were to happen to one of those other two, it's like you got Kojo that's going to have to pop to one side or the other, I think, if our projections are right on that. But yeah, that would have been a tough one to navigate for sure. I don't know. I think you keep Gooseby at left though. But I don't. He played really well at right. That's the other thing though, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
He's going to be I think he's projects towards being a first round pick regardless if he has a good year, but the left tackle thing obviously would help him a bit more. But I mean, with Membu from Missouri's been right tackle, and he's going to be up there regardless.
No, dude, look at guys like DJ Fluker and stuff. It's like you play right tackle. If you're some kind of beastly right tackle, it's like it's fine. JC Latham played left and right. I think that through the course of your career at a university, you can play both, and I think that they understand. The NFL scouts understand that. As you go through, it's like different personnel groupings will require different things. I think a lot of. What do you think? You're a professional evaluator. You do it for a living. Would you hate it if somebody played both right and left in college, or would you say I prefer a pure left tackle to have only played left?
No,
I guess optimally,
I would want both.
What?
I would like to see them have played right as a freshman potentially if they started. Sure, play right and then move to left. Left pays the bills. Obviously, left is what you prefer to spend that first round pick on, but it would be nice to see that they had the athleticism to cross train.
Yep. Speaking of the offensive line, I do think that one other thing from Sark's availability today, I don't know exactly what the here, let me see if I can find it. Just about the center position post Jake Majors.
Compared him to a quarterback.
Yeah, and he just said that he's basically the first guy that he mentioned. He's like, you got a guy in Cole Hudson who's been, he's played, blah, blah, blah. He's been a starter for us, all the rest of this stuff. But like I said, we're going to be going through camp. We're going to get these young guys going and all the rest of it. But it really did seem like to me that our projection of Cole Hudson to start at center to start this deal out is probably right. Did you take anything different from that answer?
No. It's kind of what I expected.
And then he talked about how you need to get the best 5 out there. And he says every year there's like there's a position group where you lose a bunch of guys, and you got some new guys to step in and fill it. And it's like this year it's the offensive line, and it's something that we've known, but last year was the defensive line. It didn't turn out to be that big a disaster, right? It really didn't. And the hope with the offensive line is that that's the same. But one thing I did think was just super interesting, just from a philosophical level, as far as what Sark said about the offensive line, is he said the one thing about having those 5 guys that were combined for 8 million starts together last year, of which you lose left tackle, left guard, center, right tackle. That's a lot. The one thing about it though is like, we always talk about the golden handcuffs and the stuff. It's like the good problem to have. And, he said this allows us to say, well, is what we were doing because you're not going to change up what you're doing with those guys. You got a real good thing going in the run game. What this does is it allows us to go back and look and say, is this really what we want to be doing optimally if we're having to start over? Right. Yeah. And he said, I don't trust anybody more than Kyle Flood for the fact that we're having to kind of start over a little bit here with this new group and get a new group of guys established and all that. But it gives us at least we now have the opportunity to at least maybe think a little bit more clinically and, take the old scalpel to it and say, well, if we did this wrinkle different or this wrinkle different, we're not having to have guys unlearn things and try new things and getting them messed up in the head from what they already know. And Jake Majors has all the calls and all the checks and everything like this. And we've done outside zone with this step this way. And, this call, this mic assignment means this for as far as counting your numbers. We have Sark didn't say that, right? This is kind of what I'm extrapolating on what he had said. I'm giving my thoughts about what I would say in his spot that he says that he's in. I found it a little bit interesting that Sark would come out and just say, maybe there's some things about our run game that we've been doing that I'd like to re-examine, and we just weren't able to re-examine them because we were our hand was forced. It was kind of like it's like having Tyreek Hill in fantasy last year, right? Golden handcuffs or all the miles on Southwest Airlines. You don't love flying it, but it's like you have the free miles. You're going to just do what Tyreek Hill every week he puts up Tua Tagovailoa is hurt and his quarterback stinks, but it's Tyreek Hill, and you could bench him the week he puts up a 35 burger and you drafted him in the first round. No, you're going to play him, but you play him every week, and you get you could get the big week. You could get 4.8 fantasy points. I wonder, is it interesting? Is it interesting to you that Sark, the main thing he kind of takes away from this offensive line stuff is that there might have been things in the run game that we need to re-examine as far as just what we're doing from an offensive philosophical standpoint?
I do want to say, just because you brought it up, Southwest, they add Jacksonville, San Fran, Reno, and Milwaukee this year. I saw that on an Instagram reel that kind of sucked me in while I was in Austin. So you got more options. But as far as the running game goes with the offensive line, I think that it's interesting given last year with all the injuries in the running back room. And I don't think you really had, like you said, you didn't really have time to reinvent the wheel, time to iterate and grow because you were too busy just trying to fulfill the role. And your offensive line last year probably allows you to potentially grow and iterate and be creative in the running game. But because of the injuries, you can't. And now this year, it's kind of the inverse where you expect your running backs are going to be healthy by the time the season comes around, Christian Clark, Baxter, what have you. And now the offensive line is going to be working on gluing together. So I'll be interested to see what creativity they do come out with. But yeah, I think what they did is they just got behind the eight ball last year with the injuries, and life's not perfect. It doesn't always align perfect. So that's kind of, I guess, my thoughts about the run game situation.
I'm super excited to see what that means. I think it means something. And I'm excited to see what it does. I'm excited to see what it means. I think it means a little something. And the good news is I break down every run block concept. And so as soon as we see it, we're gonna be able to identify it and be able to,
I don't know,
pass that on to you guys here on the channel. Cody, before we get out of here, I just got to ask you, don't look at your phone. Don't look at your notifications. The Indianapolis Colts just signed a wide receiver to a 2-year, $8.5 million deal. You have one guess. It's the most ironic receiver for the Colts specifically to sign to a 2-year, $8.5 million deal.
Is it a free agent or a re-sign?
I think it's technically both.
Oh, well, wait, technically both. So that means he is on the team.
No, I think they're re-signing him, but I think he was a free agent.
Well, it's not Alec Pierce. It's not Michael Pittman. It's not Josh Downs. It's not Adonai. Oh, it's not Ashton Doolin, is it?
It's Ashton Doolin. Now, you can email us.
More than Javonte Williams?
$8.5 million. I think that they released him 2 years, like the year before last, or was he even on?
I think he got hurt last year.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you can email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. You can find us on X at Cody Carpentier, at Alex Dunlap NFL. The Football with Friends feed is at FWF_OB. Thanks to everybody for being here. Sorry about the nothing on X today, but we can't do anything about cyber attacks on to the social media platform. So hopefully we'll be back on there tomorrow. Hopefully you can navigate over here to YouTube to watch the show on the replay, as 90% of you always do. We can't thank you guys enough. We can't thank you guys enough in the chat. We're here every night, 6 to 7 p.m. We always end with this, man. Please like the show. Please subscribe to the channel. We like to get in, talk football immediately, talk football the whole time, get out, no filler. We're not going to bug you with a bunch of, likes, subscribe, stuff like that. But the point is to help the show grow. It really, really helps immensely for you guys to do that. And if you could leave a comment below, that helps also. It helps the algorithm. You can just leave a comment talking about how big Alex's hands are, or, how short Cody is. You can you can talk about how handsome Anna Nanduri is, and just anything like that. We would definitely appreciate that. And also tell your friends about the show. We do it all year, man. We love doing it. It continues to grow, but it's because of you guys. The most importantly, if you like the show, if you dig it, just come back. We can't thank you guys enough. We love you very much. Thanks to Poncho Outdoors. Thanks to Texas Beef Traders. Thanks to Specs. And thanks to myperfectfranchise.net for being great sponsors here on the channel. All right. We'll be back on Tuesday. Love you guys. Enjoy your night. God bless you. For Cody, I'm Alex. We're done.